NIH funded putting aborted babies' fingers and scalps off the heads of aborted babies and putting them into the backs of research mice. The scalps later grew fine baby hair in the mice. They even included those disgusting photos in their research paper that you funded. Not all of those were research on coronaviruses, but some were. Thankfully, the current NIH director has said, no more of this. Dr. Fauci, yes or no? Do you think that human aborted parts should be put into mice for coronavirus research?
The advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
NIH funded putting aborted babies' fingers and scalps off the heads of aborted babies and putting them into the backs of research mice. The scalps later grew fine baby hair in the mice. They even included those disgusting photos in their research paper that you funded. Not all of those were research on coronaviruses, but some were. Thankfully, the current NIH director has said, no more of this. Dr. Fauci, yes or no? Do you think that human aborted parts should be put into mice for coronavirus research?
The advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
He respectfully declines to comment on the advice of counsel under the Fifth Amendment rights he claims he has to the Constitution. Seriously, this man thinks he has rights. He thinks he has rights, and he was already pardoned. He doesn't have any rights. He has privileges, and now he has none of those. This man is despicable. He's already walked out of Congress. He's finished testifying. Joseph Philip Daniel actually grabbed a footage of him getting in the car and peeling out of D.C., the District of Criminals, the District of Corruption. Folks, since 2020, we have been dealing with a massive genocide against humanity. This has been genocide against all of us has been going on for far longer than that. The government now is just exposed. They're out in the open. And, Biden, brain dead Biden, gave him a pardon. I don't expect Fauci to go to prison. I'm surprised vigilante justice hasn't taken over. I can only imagine how incredible the security must have been at the hearing today. But it is, and I'm not advocating for violence. I'm just saying this is absolutely horrific that this man walks out of Congress, gets into a car and just drives away. He's made millions and millions of dollars. Every single member of Congress, excoriated him. Josh Hawley took him to the woodshed. So did Rand Paul. I watched snippets of it here and there. I can't stand that man. I have 3 family members who are very ill from the jab because they wouldn't listen to me. And it's very personal to me. It's personal to everybody that was, impacted. He impacted billions of lives. Well over 1 million Americans died during COVID, and many more are dying now in the after effects of COVID and of the jabs and of what he did. So I just have to address that because it makes my blood boil when I see this guy. He should be in front of a firing squad from from a military justice style trial and just take him to Gitmo and put him down. He's a dog. He needs to be put down. He needs to be put into a beagle cage like he did with those cute little beagles, strap his neck into a box and let it get eaten, attacked by fleas and ticks and everything else. The guy's a monster. He's a total monster. Anyhow, I'm going to try and get a little calm here, but I had to at least address that because it's all over media today. Everybody is talking about it, and I have to get it off my chest because I literally hate that man. I think many millions of people, probably billions of people hate that man. But today we're actually going to explore something that actually overlaps during the Fauci era, during when Ronald Reagan was president. We're actually going to open a file on from Reagan from years ago that it raises a couple of very different questions. First, what happened medically after surgeons removed a cancerous tumor from President Reagan's colon in July of 1985? Do you guys remember that? When it was like, oh my God, the president of the United States has got cancer. He's going in for colon surgery. What happens next, right? And then, Reagan also got shot. We remember that. Fortunately, he survived. But the other question we have to look at is if, did Ronald Reagan pursue what would have been considered a very controversial treatment that was then outside the American standard for oncology, And if he did, why wasn't the public ever told? Because the public record confirms that Reagan had surgery at Bethesda Naval Medical Center and that roughly about 2 feet of his colon were removed. His doctors reported that cancer had invaded the bowel wall, but that they found no spread to his lymph nodes, liver, or any other organs. So that surgery alone could explain why he remained cancer-free. But the material we're going to actually take a look at today makes a far more extraordinary allegation. It actually says that Nancy Reagan pursued the president to receive intravenous Laetrile, sometimes called amygdalin or vitamin B17, and that treatments were administered secretly inside the White House and aboard a Navy vessel near West Germany. It also connects Reagan to German physician Dr. Hans Nieper and to another alternative product called Carnivora. So, I mean, this is pretty explosive. If that happened, it's a pretty major story about, well, presidential secrecy, government power, as if we don't witness it every single day. These freaking criminals in the District of Corruption, that dumpster fire, these criminals walk all over us, gaslight us. That's basically what today was about, by the way, just gaslighting us. Look at all the crap he did, and he's still getting away from it. But clearly, there's some medical freedom issues that we weren't made apprised of if this in fact happened. We have a right to know because these are pretty extraordinary claims and they require evidence. So a long life, President Reagan did live a long life. And after cancer surgery doesn't, of course, by itself prove that the later treatment cured the disease. So we're going to take a look and separate out what has been documented from what has been alleged. We're going to be asking what's the proposed mechanism of action that Laetrile actually provides, what human clinical evidence shows, what the known risks are, and whether a government actually should, prevent a fully informed adult choosing a treatment, because that's what we saw during COVID. Line up, you are sick, you go to a hospital, lay in that bed, or stick in an IV of run, death is near. Remember remdesivir? Run, death is near. We're going to absolutely destroy your inner organs. Your kidneys are going to shut down. Your body's going to swell up with water. Your lungs are going to start to drown. Then we're going to pump a ventilator in there like a fish tank with an oxygenator. We're going to just blow bubbles in your lungs and watch you drown and suffer. And oh, by the way, we're going to give you some hospice medication. So you just go night-night. Bye. That was the hospital protocol that came out of the CDC. Sorry, I keep digressing and going back to it. This is how much it disturbs me to see that monster on TV today and have to get into a car and drive away. So getting back to our topic of what we're going to talk about and why this is so important. I'm not a doctor, so anything we're talking about here from me is not medical advice. We're going to be listening to the experts. And I'm not suggesting that you abandon what you're currently doing. If you're undergoing cancer surgery or screenings right now or any sort of oncology treatment, if you have, if you're confident in your physician that's treating you, that's okay. Stay confident. We want to expose you to some more information. We want to give you more information because this is an investigation to a hidden history claim, which is a much bigger question that every American should care about. Who controls the decisions we make about our own bodies? John Richardson Jr. is the founder and chief visionary officer of Operation World Without Cancer and the founder of Richardson Nutritional Center. He's the son of Dr. John A. Richardson, a California physician whose use of Laetrile in the 70s led to raids, arrests, and the loss of his medical license. John Jr. has carried that battle forward as an advocate for medical freedom and greater access and natural complementary approaches. His company also markets B17-related products, which we disclose because viewers deserve to understand both his personal history and his commercial connection to the issue. John, it is great to have you here. Thank you so much for joining and welcome to Steel News. You're on mute.
Oh my goodness, Ann, it's so great to see you again. Last saw you in Tulsa, Oklahoma at the Clay Clark event where we saw a bunch of friends and all of us fighting the same battle for truth and freedom. My family has been fighting that battle since the 1960s, medical freedom. And Ronald Reagan, before he was even president, was also, we've supplied some articles, newspaper articles and things, but he was also on the side of freedom of choice in cancer treatment and saw the results of these studies that were going on in the 70s that proved that it was actually effective. For a little bit more background, my dad wrote a book called Laetrile Case Histories. This was a little bit of a beat up copy, right? But it was all about the patients that he treated at his clinic as an MD, trained at University of Rochester Medical School. He had a standard training, pharmaceutical background training, as he got into his medical practice, he found that the ways of cutting, burning, and poisoning cancer did not work. It did not work in his patients. He would send his patients over to the oncology department at the local hospital, and they'd never see him again, or most of the time, never see him again. So he used natural medicine to treat his patients. And how that ties into Ronald Reagan is that Ronald Reagan was involved in the battle during the 70s to make Laetrile available and free. And there was also a congressman, Larry McDonald, who was a Christian doctor from Georgia, who also was putting up laws to say that we as a general public should be able to get Laetrile available to us. And Congressman Larry McDonald was a dear friend of my dad's. He was a doctor. He used Laetrile in his medical practice, and he became a congressman. Unfortunately, he died in a tragic plane explosion, Korea Flight 007. And it was one of the saddest days of my dad's life. I remember my dad crying. So this, now, when you look back at all these things, you can go, oh, this is just happenstance. These are just things that happen. But people, you've seen with this whole Fauci thing, people do a whole lot of things for greed, control, and money. And this cancer industry is the microcosm. That's why it all ties in. The microcosm of the vaccines and the COVID scam that went on has been going on in the cancer business for 60 years. We've known what cancer is for 60 years. It's been documented at Sloan Kettering and at Loyola University and other doctors all across the country. We've known what the answer is, but it's been hidden. And this Reagan story shows that in spades.
So before we get to the cancer treatment claim with Reagan, I want to know what evidence shows that Reagan actually supported medical freedom or a patient's rights to choose before his 1985 diagnosis. I mean,
I don't know if you got the articles that we've gleaned. We have inherited about 60 years of documentation from the Cancer Control Society. They collected all these articles. There's a Spotlight magazine. Reagan reaffirms Laetrile backing. He did that. We have article after article from even prior to his presidency that he supported it in California. So he showed up at meetings. He did speeches, and the documentation that we found from Hans Nieper. And here's the bombshell is that I had a Reagan staffer who was actually in the White House back in the 1980s. He was running for Congress out of Connecticut. He reached out to me and said he had personal knowledge that he helped get the Dr. Hans Nieper and another doctor from Sloan Kettering to come treat Ronald Reagan with Laetrile inside the White House and on a military vessel off the coast of West Germany by Dr. Hans Nieper. He had visual witness of it, and he had all the names, all the story, and I did a 1 hour long interview with him. But to be honest with you, he begged us not to put it out there because he said there were some deep state, his words, deep state people that were still in government, that he was afraid that he could get serious consequences. And go ahead.
So I want to kind of just stop for a second and go back. So when Reagan was diagnosed with colon cancer and he went into the, quote unquote, removed a polyp in his colon. I remember this like it was yesterday because my father had the same problem. He had a lot of colon polyps as well, and never diagnosed with colon cancer, but had polyps removed prophylactically. What was the stage in terms of they removed the polyp? What do we know about the meeting with Hans Nieper in terms of how quickly he was starting the Laetrile therapy? Did it begin before the surgery, during, after? What was the protocol applied?
Yeah, it began before the surgery started. And that's an important thing because this therapy takes time. It's not just instantaneous. In America, we're so used to getting things cut, removed, whatever, burned out, poisoned out. But Reagan was thoroughly afraid. He was deathly afraid of chemotherapy and radiation. He knew that if he was to get those, that he wouldn't get to become have a second term. This was something he let people know, that he was deathly afraid of chemo, and they wanted to use chemo and radiation on him to follow up from the surgery. whether he had 2 feet removed or a polyp removed, we don't actually have his medical record, so we can't say what was done, but we do know that Dr. Hans Nieper treated him with Laetrile therapy. And in articles that we provided, he never stated publicly that he treated President Reagan, but he did say that he treated presidents. Okay, so he was well known and very famous, Dr. Hans Nieper. And in his book that he wrote, he said Laetrile was the most effective treatment he had ever tested or ever used in his treatment. I have a copy of his book in my office, and I often show that in his book. He himself said it. So we know that he was treating President Ronald Reagan by his words, by the results that happened. And Ronald Reagan lived another 19 years. Most people that get colon cancer there's about a 95% chance of surviving 5 years. Excuse me. There's about a 5% chance of surviving 5 years if you do colon surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation. They might be able to get you to 5 years at about 5% of the cases. So thinking that Ronald Reagan was cured by just having the surgery is just the facts don't support that. He definitely had the metabolic therapy from Hans Nieper and from other doctors that surrounded him. And so
are you saying then, John, that you agree that a surgically removed node tumor, it could be node negative, like I said, a lymph node negative, I should be more clear, a lymph node negative tumor, meaning it has not spread from the tumor to the lymph nodes. Are you saying that if you do a node negative surgical removal of a tumor, it can be cured by surgery alone, or do you think it's a prerequisite that you should have Laetrile involved as well?
Well, I think natural metabolic therapy, including Laetrile, is important in any case. I believe this is another bombshell that 95% of colon surgeries are unnecessary. Ooh. That I have doctor friends. That's a bombshell. Doctor friends that have been doing it for 40 years. Natural treatment for cancer, for colon cancer, and avoiding the surgeries. It's a slippery slope. Once you start cutting things out of your body, you create all sorts of other problems.
Well, like if you puncture a tumor, if you do a tumor biopsy, doesn't it sort of let stuff leak out and then it spreads?
Well, that's proven. It's proven. In order for them to say that you have cancer, they have to do a biopsy, and biopsies are proven. A tumor, is not the disease. That's the biggest fallacy that people believe, that a tumor, I got cancer, I got a tumor. The tumor is the body's defense mechanism surrounding the cancer, the cells that are improperly multiplying. And the tumor is what protecting the body in many cases. Now, there's lots of cancers that spread quickly, and that's where Sloan Kettering and Dr. Harold Manor at Loyola University proved that that Laetrile kills cancer that's fast moving. So it's most effective when cancer's spreading because of the mechanism of the way it works.
Explain the mechanism of action.
Yeah, the mechanism of action is beta-glucosidase is an enzyme that's produced by cancer cells. It's at a much higher level in cancer cells than any other place in the body. There's a little bit in your digestive system, but healthy cells don't have beta-glucosidase. They have rhodinase. So when Laetrile or amygdalin is in your blood system and it's floating along in your blood and it comes across beta-glucosidase, it's called the unlocking enzyme. And it unlocks the amygdalin, which has 2 molecules of glucose, 1 of cyanide, ooh, the scary word, right, and 1 of benzaldehyde. When it comes across a cancer cell that has beta-glucosidase, it breaks apart. The cancer naturally wants to eat the glucose, but is killed by the cyanide and benzaldehyde. Now, if there's too much excess cyanide and benzaldehyde, rhodinase in healthy cells turns those into thiocyanate and benzoate, which are naturally occurring pain relievers. So many of the cancer patients that my dad treated, up to 95% of them all said they had pain relief. And the FDA had to admit in the 70s that clearly amygdalin causes pain relief in cancer patients, but we don't want to prove it anyway, because then people think that that it's a treatment for cancer and they'll stay away from the successful things like chemo, radiation, and surgery. So we know the mechanism and how it works, But yet the fear mongering, and is that if you Google, anybody watched this in Google and said, oh, if you eat 3 apricot seeds, the
Right.
equivalent of 60 milligrams of amygdalin, you can die of cyanide poisoning.
Yeah.
Here's the beauty of a doctor like Dr. Margaret Aranda, who was one of the frontline doctors. She was the head of anesthesiology at Philadelphia Hospital and at Los Angeles Hospital, and she graduated from Stanford. A very good researcher, beautiful woman, amazing Christian. She's done a deep dive into all the NIH quote unquote studies about cyanide toxicity with amygdalin. And she found not a single death related to excess eating of apricot seeds or amygdalin, because the mechanism doesn't work that way. The biochemistry doesn't work that way. You can cause yourself by eating 30 or 40 apricot seeds to get an upset stomach.
Sure.
And that is translated into being that you're poisoning yourself with cyanide.
Right.
If that was the case, Ann, we would have been out of business a long time ago. If we had even one person in the last 30 years die of cyanide poisoning, we'd be out of business. Now, if you can do it with chemotherapy, there's many people. Chemotherapy is actually poisonous drugs designed to kill the cancer before it kills you. And they regularly kill people. It's admitted that chemotherapy causes people to have their livers destroyed, their kidneys destroyed, and they die of other things besides the cancer, but maybe they shrunk the tumor a little bit. But again, the tumor is the body's defense mechanism. If you don't get to the root cause of what's causing the tumors in the first place, no matter what you do to take them out, they'll reoccur. And
That's right.
Same thing would have happened to Ronald Reagan. And it happens to people, thousands and thousands of cases of people that get tumors removed, they get chemo radiation. Now their body's immune system is destroyed and the cancer comes storming back, just like the famous baseball player up in Chicago recently that died. He said he was, he was a Hall of Famer. His name slipped my mind. Hall of Famer in Chicago. And he
not Jim Palmer?
No, it was just recently. He was like 51 years old. He came out and said, I have cancer. Then 6 months later, he said, I'm cancer free. And then 6 months later, he was dead. And, it was a tragedy. And it was, all the Chicago fans were sad. He was so young, only in his early 50s. But there was a classic example. I have an example just recently of a friend that you may know, Tina Blanco, who is a founder of Satellite 123. She came up to me two years ago and said she had thyroid cancer and that she was going to get it removed in 2 weeks. And I begged her, not as a doctor, I just begged her as a friend to please try the Richardson method for 60 or 90 days. You can always do the surgery. Please try the Laetrile and the vitamin B15 and the enzymes and eating naturally. And she did. And she avoided the thyroid surgery, and now she's cancer free. And she
lost weight. I saw her.
Yes, she lost weight. She's feeling better. She's eating a more metabolic supporting diet, meaning less animal proteins, more vegetables. And she is a recent story. She just told me that story in her home in St. George, Utah. I hope I'm not giving anything away there. I was there, and I had forgotten that I had told her that advice because she didn't follow up with me. She followed up with another dear friend of mine and told her that story. So, and like, if that was one story out of, if that was the only story that I had heard, then I'd be like, oh my gosh, it's a miracle that happened to her. But I get stories weekly. My wife gets texted messages of women she ran into with breast cancer at the airport, and she just advised them to do some things, and they're cancer free now. I do so many podcasts, and I'm jumping all over the place, but I want to point some of these things out. That a lady reached out to me and said, I'm on page 242 of your dad's book. I'm the 12-year-old girl that had leukemia, and I'm now 65 years old, having followed your dad's protocol. Here I am on page 242. The little girl was 12 years old. She was at Mayo Clinic with a bunch of other little kids that had leukemia, and all of them passed. She decided to come to see my dad, and she's still alive today with 3 grandchildren and 2 children. So I get stories and histories all the time, thousands of them.
Yeah, I know. I'm well aware that you do. I want to take a pause. Somebody in the group, Florida native, thanks for being here. We follow each other on X. Any information on ivermectin? I know it's out of scope from Laetrile, but just in case you have anything you want to add about ivermectin. I'm
Well,
a believer. I cured
well, yeah.
skin cancer on my nose using ivermectin horse paste.
Yeah, I
And
used
laying in the sun every day with my beautiful Florida tan that I love my tan, but I don't worry about the sun anymore because I know it's very healthy. It's very
sun
restorative.
is very healthy.
Yep.
That's a very strong statement. Another lie, they told us to stay out of the sun or put sunscreen on. Sunscreen is cancer causing.
Cancer.
And people, I want the audience to hear this. Cancer is a deficiency disease. So when I say something causes cancer, it's because your body has a deficiency already, and it allows the cancer to multiply without being stopped by your body's defense mechanism. If you have a good immune system, G. Edward Griffin, who wrote the book World Without Cancer, is 95. He's still alive today.
I'm going to try and see him next month.
Yeah, awesome. He's just a dear friend, and this book was dedicated to my father. You know the story.
Yeah.
But ivermectin is a parasite killer, but it also disrupts the mechanism of cancer, how it multiplies. So people think that cancer is a parasitic disease, and I'm here to argue that parasites attack a body with a bad immune system. That's true, but cancer is a deficiency disease. If you have the God's original parasite killers in your body, which are amygdalin found in apricot seeds and on all natural foods, if you have that, you'll never develop cancer in the first place. But once you have it, the parasites can attack, and ivermectin has been shown to kill the parasites and also disrupt the mechanism of multiplication of cancer cells. So it does basically
apoptosis, right? It just kills the cells.
Right.
Cells die of their own death.
Is what the NIH said in their own study, Ann.
Yeah.
That amygdalin Laetrile causes apoptosis in cancer cells. It's right there in the NIH.
Right.
So it's the same mechanism. So yes, I say in moderation, because I don't want to hurt anybody's liver overdoing it with ivermectin. So in moderation, ivermectin. It's nature, yes.
It's nature. No, it's okay. Children are great. Use nature to. I mean, listen. God built the earth. I
have 11
Stop
children,
yelling. Shut the door. The dog's barking.
Yes, exactly.
I know the feeling. Seriously, God made this beautiful planet with everything we need on it to live and thrive and survive and heal. And I think the earth heals itself. If we were to stop spraying the skies, I think the earth and the acid rain and the crop, everything would just restore itself. It just does. We're regenerative. We're a live planet. We're live people, and our bodies can heal themselves. And so we just put the wrong crap in there and we end up killing ourselves. So, that's what it is. But we have a will to live. We have a very strong will to live. And so the body, will fight until it's, it just can't fight any longer. It definitely puts up a good fight. Dying is not easy, as they say. It's not easy to die. All right. I want to bring us back to Reagan, because some things are going through my head here that I want to talk to you about. You said that there was a Reagan administration insider who told you that Reagan received IV Laetrile secretly. You said in the White House or on board a ship off the coast of Germany. Can you tell us who the person? What?
Yeah, is it? I think I believe that he has no problem me telling his name.
Okay.
Let me see. It's unfortunate that it's not. Let me see. I'm going to text my assistant Jan.
Okay. Find out if we can find out who this person's name is. What was his role, and what did this person, whoever it is, witness in terms of the treatment firsthand? Because I think that's interesting. I would love to hear if this person would do an interview, and come out and.
Yes, they did do an interview with me. And as I said, after we did it, and it's available, we haven't followed up with them. We should. But
if you've got an interview, then I think you can say his name. You put it on your channel?
Yes. No, I didn't. That's what I'm saying, Ann. We made the interview. We cut it. We had it all ready to go. And then he got afraid. He literally said that there was a guy. He specifically named the guy that we had to cut out on the interview that's still in the administration that he felt would not be happy with him coming out with this information.
Wait, they're still working in the government today?
Yes.
Where, in the NIH, CDC?
He said they're with the government. No, like closely related to the White House, deep state, closely related to the White House. Yes.
Whoa.
Oh yeah. That's not surprising to me. That's normal to me.
It's normal. Deep state, it's why so screwed up.
Because here, Ann, I will get his name. He ran for Congress at District 1 in Connecticut. Joe Hoxa was the guy that won't mind me saying his name, is a government excuse me, he works in the Connecticut government. Joe Hoxha, he's a friend. His mom, he reached out because his mom used Laetrile to control her cancer. He came
Okay.
out, drove out, met with Ed Griffin, then met with me, and then he introduced me to this Reagan staffer who he was working with. And he actually they came together to a Clay Clark event. So I met him, I interviewed him for an hour. His name is not at the tip of my tongue, but Joe Hoxha was the guy that introduced me to him.
Okay.
Here's the key. The pressure was so great on Ronald Reagan to do the normal standard treatments because of he was supported from California all the way through by the big pharma industry.
Mm-hmm.
And they had open discussions that, yes, we'll let you do this, but we do not want you coming out. We do not want this coming out to affect the profits of all of our, all these cancer drugs that were getting approved that are working, Ronald Reagan, they're working. We don't want people to get sidetracked because of what you're doing. And so they put massive pressure on him. And this is where Reagan ties into our good friend, Dr. Fauci. And I say that obviously not our good friend, Dr. Fauci, but on November 14th of 1986, Ronald Reagan, the president that used natural treatments for cancer and avoided pharmaceutical drugs, signed the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, NCVIA, that allowed all pharmaceutical companies to avoid any kind of liability for creating these monster vaccines that started in earnest. In 1986, when I was 22 years old, I was still young. I only had five vaccines were on the schedule. I'd only had one personally. That was the lockjaw vaccine, tetanus vaccine. But on the books at that time, there was 5 or 6 mandatory vaccines or suggested childhood vaccines. Now in the state of California, you in order to go to school, you have to have about 72, I think it is last count, 72 doses of vaccines to put your child into school in California now, mandated. That is what that created, what Ronald Reagan did. So they allowed him to treat himself and live another 19 years naturally, but they put so much intense pressure on him, they got him to sign this law that lets people like Fauci skate.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. Plus, he got a pardon, although it was an auto pen pardon. So, I don't know where we stand on that. Frankly, I am so focused on immunizing my state from the federal government, and I encourage everybody to take a page out of this book. Get yourself a really good governor. Make sure your governor is going to exercise and CrossFit your 9th and 10th Amendment every day, so that when the bastards from DC come calling to try and rubber stamp some garbage, protocol down your throat, like run, death is near, and you have to take the shot, you have to mask up. At least our governor stood up and gave him the Heisman and said, see you later. We're not doing any of that. And they've, bolstered that. And the guy that I'm supporting, Paul Renner, was the Speaker of the House when all that went down. And he was very strong about architecting the free state of Florida. That's what everybody needs to do, because that dumpster fire is still burning and it's like a 5-alarm fire still. I don't care who's in presidency. It doesn't matter. We now know being the president really doesn't matter. You're a puppet for whatever. And frankly, they may have good intentions, but let's see what let's look back at the execution. What have we got here yet? We have Fauci doing dog and ponies, while people like you are actually doing real work with real solutions, and you're getting hammered by everybody to try and snuff you out. And you can't snuff somebody out because you can't patent nature, right? Unfortunately, people like you, and don't take this the wrong way, but good cancer doctors have been, they've been snuffed out. And that's been a big problem in this industry. So it's to me, it's amazing that G. Edward Griffin, your dad, and you, all alive and well, healthy, and well, not your father, but he passed, but everybody else that has made it through somehow. God has been definitely protecting you, because many other good people didn't make it. So, they were snuffed.
Well, I have a quick story about Dr. There was a doctor in, he wrote the book, The Death of Cancer, Dr. Harold Manor, who studied Laetrile for 5 years at Loyola University and proved, he came out and said, breast cancer should no longer exist. He said that I have 100% success rate using Laetrile, pancreatic enzymes, and vitamin A to treat breast cancer. And he came out and told the world in 1977 and wrote a book called The Death of Cancer, and described all in detail how 5 years, how he had been fighting this battle. And he mentioned my dad in his book, and they knew each other, but they weren't like, it wasn't like they were colluding or friends doing this together to make millions of dollars. But Harold Manor did all this and then was fired from Loyola University because the pharmaceuticals put so much pressure on him. Well, actually, he had to take a sabbatical for a year, then came back. During that sabbatical, he was training doctors around Chicago and all over the United States how to use Laetrile, what we call the Richardson method treatment, to prevent and control breast cancer. And so the quick story just on him, it's a very long story. You and I could do a whole thing about it, but he was forced to go to Mexico because he was fired. He was penniless, just like my dad was forced to go to Mexico, and they both died October of 1988. So both these fine doctors, and Dr. Dean Burke, the head of the NIH, who said that Laetrile, a government agency, said that Laetrile is the most effective natural treatment they'd ever used against cancer. And he died at the same time, within 90 days of my dad and Dr. Manor dying.
Wow.
Yeah.
This gentleman, Doug, has a question. Douglas Arnott Hewlett. He goes by Douglet. Hi, Douglet. What are your thoughts on Max Gerson? Max
Gerson therapy. Gerson therapy is fantastic. It's basically the same as my dad's therapy. It doesn't specifically call out Laetrile, but most of the foods that Max Gerson recommends are full of amygdalin. There's 1,200 different foods, especially vegetables and nuts and berries and the seeds of fruits like apple seeds, peach seeds, apricot seeds. So Max Gerson's went right along with my dad. My dad agreed with him thoroughly. These doctors, like we call it the Richardson method, but Hans Nieper would have called it the Hans Nieper method.
Right.
It's basically just metabolic therapy. And then doctors give twists to it with mistletoe or ivermectin. And most all of the doctors that are out there talking about natural therapies include Laetrile, but they don't bring it up because it's been so demonized. Doctors have lost their licenses and been arrested, and people have died. Literal friends of mine have died over this methodology. And so it's pretty extraordinary. How many cancer doctors this is almost as big as the Hillary Clinton list. How many cancer doctors have been suicided over the years? At least 100.
That's
at least
right.
100 natural doctors. Yeah. I know someone that did a video, and it had 50 doctors, and it said dead doctors don't lie, or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just tragic. It's tragic. And so but some doctors have been sued out of existence. There's a doctor in Houston that was using Laetrile and gene therapy, and he was doing fantastic work, and they sued him so much. He eventually won, but he just kind of shrank back. And he's a nice little European doctor. I don't know why my brain is not remembering names this morning, but
it's called this, what they spray overhead. It happens to me.
Yes.
I can't remember somebody's name that I know for 50 years. I'm like,
I know that happens.
I see their face and my name goes blank. It's terrible. That's bad.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
How does IV administration, because you said Reagan was taking IVs of this, how does that differ from the oral ingestion in absorption, in the metabolism, and in the cyanide release, which everybody likes to make a big deal about, and risk? Is there any differences between taking it orally and doing it through intravenous?
Well, orally there's a more higher risk of getting an upset stomach, just because there is a little beta glucosidase in the intestinal tract. So you have to monitor the amount of seeds you take, but it's not, you can never get cyanide poisoning. So let's get that out of the way. We've done the deep dive on that. But injection wise, I talked to a doctor here, Dr. John Murphy, out of Tempe, Arizona, who's been using the Richardson method for 26 years successfully. His very first non-Hodgkin's lymphoma patient still alive today, 26 years later. And I met him from a guy that had colon cancer that he had helped come back. He was told he was going to die, and he came back. He's 7 years cancer-free. Anyway, he says he's never had a toxic result from doing the IV, because the IV does not go through the digestive tract. Mm-hmm. There is when you're taking supplements, there is some degradation of those supplements through your digestive system. The body's acids in the stomach, through the small intestine, all of that is breaking down, and you get some loss of the vitamin. So if you're really trying to treat something that's serious, my dad used up to 12 grams a day, sometimes 15 grams a day. And Dr. Murphy said he's done as much as 20 grams, which is like thousands of apricot seeds, because there's 20 milligrams in a single apricot seed. So in IV injections of amygdalin there's never been a toxic report. There's not even been a study that showed that it's ever been toxic. The only study that they cheated on that I have to bring up sometime is they mixed amygdalin in the lab with beta glucosidase, got the cyanide to be released, and then injected that in dogs, and all the dogs died.
Oh God.
Yeah, but we've had hundreds or thousands of
Where was that
animals
done? Was that done at NIH?
Probably, yes.
That
I don't
sounds
have
like
the
a
study.
Fauci study. That sounds like a Fauci study. He's just a demon.
Exactly.
He's
Of
a
course, it was
demon.
well timed, right when everybody was coming out saying the Laetril's working. It's
Oh yeah.
Dr. Kanemitsu Segura, who invented chemotherapy, Anne, at Sloan Kettering, said Laetril was the most effective treatment he'd ever tested at Sloan Kettering. He invented chemotherapy, and he was shut up. He was quieted for profit because Sloan Kettering was owned by the pharmaceutical companies, and all the doctors on the board were all representatives of the pharmaceutical companies.
So would you actually support a modern randomized or a very carefully controlled trial if you had transparent endpoints and independent replication so that you can actually document what's happening?
Yes, I absolutely would. The problem with blind studies, Anne, is that amygdalin is a naturally occurring compound. It needs to have other things along with it. You need to have the enzymes. You need to have vitamin A. You need to make sure your immune system is going. So what do you do in a blind study? Have one person eat McDonald's, have all garbage get sprayed with all this stuff, and then have one group that does that and the other group that does all the right things. The study has to be done. And people like the Plantrition Project, which is a bunch of MDs, are discovering that these new studies have to be retrospective studies that cover more than just one item, because one chemotherapeutic agent can be shown to kill cancer cells.
Right.
In a double blind study like this, you put it in one person, it kills the cancer cell. The other person, it doesn't. Nothing kills the cancer cell. But it doesn't show that also kills all the other healthy cells when they do the chemotherapy, when they do the studies. So the whole study system is slanted against natural remedies, because natural remedies are more complicated, not more complicated. They need more support from other things. You can't have a terrible diet and put amygdalin in it and expect it to work as well as if you change the person's diet along with the amygdalin.
Sure. So let's be transparent, because your company does sell B17 related products. What exactly
100%.
is in these? Well, let's just run through your products. What are the claims that you actually make for them, and what evidence supports the claims that you're making?
Well, we have to stay away from claims as much as possible, other than the things that are studies that we can say that have, there's lots of studies about oxygenating the blood, about hair growth, about skin, about people that have enough B17 in their diet don't get tooth decay. These studies have been done, but we try to stay away from, because that's how they can shut you down about making claims. So we just provide people the information, direct them in the right path, and then show them that we have case studies that are out there and documentation beyond belief, including books and studies. 50 years of this information we have, but we can't make those claims on our website, and we have to stay away from making claims about the C word. But here I am talking about it, that it's been used for that. But we are not doctors, and we're not claiming to cure anything. What we claim is that a diet with proper nutrition has been proven many times to keep people cancer free, and that the Hunzas of northern Pakistan, according to CNBC, have lived to be over 100 years old, primarily because they eat a lot of apricot seeds. CNBC did an article on that, and NIH has said that that amygdalin found in apricot seeds kills cancer cells. But if we say it, Anne, if we say it on our website, or we say it, that's a fact, then that's how they come after us. But so we just have to give people as much information as we can, and then tell people, do your own research, study about it. And here's the key: there is no side effects for metabolic therapy. It's all positive.
Right.
So even if you're doing chemo, radiation, surgery, a doctor that says you shouldn't also do metabolic therapy is lying to you. And we have case after case after case where the chemotherapy and radiation work better when someone is eating the proper foods and taking care of their metabolism and using amygdalin on the side.
You know, John, we saw this in a story I covered recently, the Boyce family. It was a CPS medical kidnapping story. A little boy who was 6, diagnosed with cancer, went to a doctor, got transferred to St. Jude's Medical Center, an affiliate in North Carolina, was given a very, strong cancer protocol. Parents have an organic farm, and they raise their kids in homeschool and all this good stuff, and are and not only homeschool, but they had their kids, some kids going to school. The point I'm making is they supplemented, they added to their child's diet. They were doing daily oral chemo for the child, making him very sick. But because they were doing adjuvant therapy with healthy alternative nutritional supplements, his numbers, he was, he would get sick for a few days, but then he would rebound. And so when he went in and did blood tests every month, they were looking at the blood test saying, gosh, he's not that sick. But yet the cancer was in remission and had all the numbers were disappeared. Long short, they now don't think he ever had cancer. And when his numbers kept getting better and better, they threatened CPS. So this family had to spend $5,000 a month to have a nurse come in, videotape, document to make sure the child was taking his chemo. The numbers were the numbers when they went back, because they were supplementing with healthy stuff to help build his immune system to combat the chemo. And they made the referral to CPS. So now CPS is involved in their lives. If it wasn't for Dr. Joseph Latipo, Surgeon General of Florida, stepping in and giving the Boyce family an alternative to leave North Carolina and come to Florida and finish the treatment, the child would have ended up in CPS. I mean, this is ridiculous. Unfortunately, because of the toxicity of the cancer treatments, this child has now suffered a traumatic brain injury and he has seizures regularly. He never had any of that. And they now think it was more of an autoimmune disease. It wasn't even, they're looking at Epstein-Barr. This is how insane it is. And this is what the medical profession does over and over and over. They weaponize your health. They call CPS to, put you over a barrel, and you just go along to get along because you don't want to get your kid taken from you. And meanwhile, your kid is now getting medically injured.
Well, a quick story. My friend, Dr. Scott Stoll, an MD, who founded the Plantrition Project. He's out of Tennessee. He's been doing it for 15 years. He's curing and getting rid of, I shouldn't say curing, controlling all sorts of diseases, Lyme disease, cancer, all sorts of things. And I asked him, I said, Scott, how are you doing this? Being upfront with it. He said, once people get into the MIC, I don't touch them. I back up. I don't try to compete with them, because
the medical industrial complex,
once they're in the emergency room system and they're moved into the medical industrial complex, they're a profit center.
That's right.
That child you're talking about is a profit center. And if they allow parents to use nutrition at home, they're not gaining their profits by taking this chemo drug. They get profits. So the secret, folks, is that we have to change what we do. Instead of rushing to the emergency room, we have to have a naturopathic or integrative doctor beforehand that we can call up and talk to. If we're having some problem before it becomes acute, we need to talk to our health professional and get it addressed. Because once we get in, to the medical industrial complex, they don't want to let us go.
No.
And so that's the system that we're in. Gosh, hiccups now.
That's okay.
We must be over the target, Ann. We must be over the target.
They're hitting you with the hiccup monster. It's all good.
Yes, exactly. Anyway, so that's what I want people to hear, that I'm not saying doctors are bad. I'm not saying they don't know what they're talking, but a doctor that only knows pharmaceutical answers or medical industrial complex answers needs to be associated with a naturopathic doctor. I have a hospital in New York City, and I can give you the name of it
Who is it?
Let me tell you the hospital.
Florida native thanks you. She says great information.
Thank you so much, Florida native. My wife is a Florida native as well. Let's see.
Vote Renner. If you're looking for a governor. I cannot stress it enough.
Okay. All right. Let's see. What was I?
Tell your Florida friends to vote for Paul Renner for governor.
Okay, so I had a friend who had a very wealthy stockbroker friend in New York that that reached out to me and said he's got colon cancer. I had to deal with. I had a whole story that we could do a podcast on about me being diagnosed, being told I had colon cancer when it was just a colon blockage. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. So the point I'm trying to make is that this gentleman I gave him advice. I told him what I did and how I did it, but he chose to do the surgery. But alongside, he was wealthy enough, and the hospital just did what he said. He did the Richardson method. He got all the nutrition, got the B17, the B15, the enzymes, started eating healthier, and his results from his surgery and the chemo were so far better than the hospital had ever seen before. It's a hospital in New York City. And it was so much better that he got better much quicker and healed much quicker. And it's called Weill Cornell New York Presbyterian Hospital.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
know
they
that
want me to
hospital. I was in it
come
as a child. I know that
They want
hospital.
me to come up there and tell them about the Richardson protocol and give them the history, because
Wow.
even doctors in the medical industrial complex are getting pushback from their own patients saying, isn't there natural answers? Isn't there other things like ivermectin and, red light therapy and
Yeah.
ozone therapy? And so even doctors in the most established hospitals are seeing the rates of people coming to them to get cut, poisoned, and burned go down, while they're seeing people having good results. And so the results speak for themselves. So we are making a difference, Anne. And
That's
so,
awesome.
yeah. And that's, so I haven't had the time to go up and visit the hospital. So many people tell me all the time, why haven't you done that yet? It's because we only have 24 hours in the day.
I know.
And
I
I'm
know.
requested to speak and talk and do all the time. I had to cut back my podcast. I was doing 350 podcasts,
A year?
a year. I had done 350 podcasts last year. Yeah. As a guest. And I was doing my own podcast, but I got myself exhausted. I got to where I was not feeling well. And so I had to cut back. So yeah. Yep. So we have to take care of ourselves as well.
Absolutely.
But we are making a difference. And anybody out there watching, the way you can help us make a difference is spread this word. Tell people to watch this episode of Ann Vandersteel, and spread the news. Tell people about it. Yes. Full transparency. How I make my money is selling the product, because no one else would. 10 years ago, no one else would sell it. So that's why I did it. But that's what affords me to be able to go and travel around and speak and write books and we're doing a documentary. That's what allows us to do it. So if you believe in what we're doing, and it's so cheap, it's so ridiculously cheap. Our pro bundle is, 90-day supply is less than $200. So
it's a lot cheaper than chemotherapy. That's for sure.
Exactly.
It's a lot cheaper than chemotherapy. So I mean, John, this is valuable information as always. And I appreciate you coming on here as always. You're so enthusiastic. You're so real. You're so approachable. You're easy to get a hold of. It's not as if you're living in some ivory tower and people can't talk to you. You're just a normal guy, and in some extraordinary circumstances. But at the end of the day, when you think about it, everything was already here. This isn't like Eureka. Holy cow, this does this. It was put here for a reason to do. And we just, of course, because thank you to the Rockefeller and the Flexner Report in 1909 and the American Medical Association, then be getting, pumping petroleum into pharmaceutical products. We get sick. Now you have the Cancer Society. Oh, the Rockefellers. Hello. It's like, it's problem, solution. It's like the Hegelian dialect over here, and it's toxic. But yet all along, the natives knew about this stuff. The natives that lived on the planet, we knew this stuff. We were holistic naturopaths before Rockefeller and the Flexner Report, and we're getting back to that.
Well, God says in Genesis 1:29 that ye shall have the seed for thy food, and He didn't say don't eat too many of them because you might get cyanide poisoning. He said you should have the seed, the fruits, and the vegetables for thy food. And if we just followed God's word in Genesis 1:29, we're so much better off. And the Hunzas of northern Pakistan have no cancer, and they live to be, according to the CNBC, they live to be 120, 140 years old. And the primary reason, people can Google it, Hunzas, apricot seeds, or Hunzas CNBC, and you'll see the article. It was February of 2024, I believe. And it says the number one reason is because they eat a lot of apricots and apricot seeds, and they drink. Number two is they drink clean water. They breathe clean air. They're social beings. There it is. People, you found it.
Yep.
Look at number one reason. What's the number one reason? They consume apricot seeds and oil.
There you go.
Their skin of 90-year-old women, their skin, it looks like they're 30 years old because they put apricot seed. My wife puts apricot seed oil on her face every day. We manufacture and sell it, of course, full disclosure, because when we grind up the seeds and make seed meal, The oil
Yeah.
is a byproduct. So
Yeah.
the
You know,
oil
it's
is,
interesting.
we've
I
had
do
so many
castor
amazing
oil.
stories just on the oil.
Yeah, it's incredible. I use castor oil on my skin every day. That's my secret. I don't use anything from the pharmaceutical or from the beauty counter. I just put castor oil, whoop, I slop it all over me, eyelashes, eyebrows, your hair grows. I put it in my hair sometimes, let my hair grow. It's
Awesome.
fabulous stuff.
Yeah.
And it's all
Apricot seed
natural.
oil.
Same
Apricot seed
thing.
oil does the same thing. And so, yeah.
I wonder if that would, because I know castor is a good delivery system. Is apricot seed oil a good delivery system? Because
Yes,
when I
it
did the
is.
ivermectin on my nose, it really just got it deep in there and it cured that
Yep.
skin cancer as I'm laying in the sun getting a suntan.
Yep. We have so
And it-
many stories about the people having rashes and psoriasis, and then they start putting the apricot oil. And what's in our apricot seed oil? Let me give you the long list of things that's in our apricot seed oil. Apricot seed oil. That's it. We don't add.
Same.
Yeah. It's castor oil that you use. Same. Exactly.
Same.
So
Just woo,
yeah.
castor oil, nothing
Yep,
else.
natural is better. And
Yeah.
if, you know,
Less is more.
again, people talk about candy in the U.S. compared to candy elsewhere. Candy, when I was a kid, had 5 ingredients in it. The same candy now has 30.
30
You
and a
know,
lot of these seed oils that are really bad for you.
exactly.
Palm oil
So,
and
yeah.
yeah.
And that we talk about apricot seed oil, but the reason that seed
not
oils
heated.
are bad for you is because it's heated.
Yep.
It's degraded through heating, and that's what makes it poison. Ours is all cold pressed. So
Yep,
cold
cold
pressed
pressed.
seed oils are good for you.
Yep.
Unfortunately, people hear seed oil and they're but
No.
apricot seed oil is cold pressed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's linguistically, you have to be careful how you, semantically tell people what it is. You got to be very, very specific because people are smart now. They now know. Know. John, I know you do 1,000 of these podcasts, so I won't keep you. You've been a wonderful guest. Thank you for being here for the hour, and thank you for everything that you're doing. It's
Thank
tremendous.
you so much, Ann. It's wonderful seeing you.
Yep.
We support. I know you do a lot of things in child trafficking, anti-child trafficking, and I support that and talk to people. I was just talking to somebody about yesterday, and Pastor Dave Bryan is a friend of mine up in
I'll be
Yuba
speaking
City.
with him next month.
Okay,
actually.
good. He's a friend of mine, and we got to talk. Well, I visit him every time I'm up in Northern California. Anyway, I am very involved in that side of. That's a secondary thing that I keep myself involved in as well. And so you're a big hero on that. And and any time that I can help in anything with that as well, I want to put that out there.
I appreciate that. I really do. And if there's a way to weave you into that, absolutely. We're working on doing some pretty cool stuff. We have some donors that are wanting to help us build some centers and so forth. So we had a piece of property. We were doing the due diligence on it. And unfortunately, half the property was not buildable because in Florida along where it was just too much muck and we needed a bigger piece. So we're in the hunt right now, but a donor is going to step up and buy it. And so we'll be building a facility around that, which is very exciting. And I'm very proud of the work we're doing at American Made Foundation for that purpose alone. And Long, I'm sure you know our book. We did CPS Pipeline, State Sanctioned Kidnapping. This book is taken off like gangbusters because parents want to know how do they get themselves out of the system or prevent from ever going in. And that book explains it. So.
Again, that's a gateway into horrible things, just like the emergency room system is a gateway into the MIC.
Yep. The military, it's not the military, it's the medical military industrial complex. Yes. It's all connected. The medical complex, the military complex, thanks to COVID, we now know that it's all connected.
Yeah.
It's all sickeningly enough, it's all connected. John Richardson with the Richardson Nutritional Center store, the RNC store.
RNCstore.com for ease of use, RNCstore.com.
Yeah, it's streaming on the bottom. It's in the show notes as well, the link to that. So if you had a Rumble account, YouTube account, or Facebook, it's all in the show notes. So stop over there, pick up some B17, some Laetrile, and fight cancer even when you don't think you need to. It's that simple.
Especially when you don't need to. It's the best. Prevention is worth an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Absolutely. John Richardson, give my best to your bride. Thank you so much.
All right.
Take care.
God bless.
Bye. What a great guy. Such a great guy. And it was a nice uplifting show. I'm sorry. I know I opened the show all fired up and mad about Fauci, but I still think that the dog and pony shows that go on in DC, I've seen them for, over 50 years now. It's ridiculous what goes on up there. They just don't ever change. It's just slam the gavel, say some sharp words across a prepared statement over a microphone, look at the bad guy who sits there and takes the fifth and then gets in his car and speeds away after he murdered millions of people because he doesn't really care because he's a demon. And I still want to see that guy's head in a cage and just covered in fleas being eaten to death. and whimpering. And, oh no, let's make sure we take his vocal cords out so we don't hear him cry. That's what he did to those beagles. He's just such a demon. I still can't believe he did that. Not to mention what he's done to the children, the AIDS experiments, all this stuff. The guy is Joseph Mendele. He's disgusting. All right, guys, that's it for today. I'm going to tape a show now with somebody that will play later. We're going to be talking about trusts. This is going to be something you're not going to want to miss, because the rich do it, the elite do it. They all own nothing and they're very happy. And, as I say, if U.S. corporations can exit jurisdictions and move companies offshore to stay out of U.S. jurisdictions, why can't we? All right, you guys have a great night. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll talk again later.